Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and welcome to my May 2020 horoscope report for you. I am over the moon excited to announce the launch of my new book, Planetology: How to Align with the Natural Rhythms of the Universe. And this is published through Watkins Media in the UK, and facilitating distribution worldwide is our partner, Penguin Random House. You can look up Annie Planetology in any search and you will find it for pre-order, and you can get more information about it. I'm very excited, and I hope it really helps you because that's the intention of my creating it. So I'm going to give you a quick introduction here, just about some general things to know, and then we'll get into some a lot of sign-specific things, really focused on Venus retrograde, where it's going to show up for your sign, and the special things to know about that, and also where this June 5th eclipse is going to show up in your chart. This is really critical because we are entering eclipse season very hot and heavy as of May. You might start to see eclipse manifestations even in April, 6 to 8 weeks before the eclipses tend to get very hot. And we've got this grand finale of the Capricorn Cancer eclipse cycle. So lots of things involving home and work. And as we see now with what's going on with the coronavirus and all of the breakdown of things in the world that seem to be related to the coronavirus, but really all of this is astrological. A lot of topics of home and work and working from home and distance, everything about distance and distancing is coming up in a big way. So this eclipse cycle is going to bring a lot of information about how this is all going to go. Definitely stay tuned. After this video, I will be putting at the end my video called The Astrology of 2020, and that's going to be my input on the coronavirus as it relates to the astrology, things that are going on with the systems in the world, and how I believe we can make the most of the opportunities that are coming and deal with the challenges that are also here. Okay, so definitely listen for that after this video. So there are 3 eclipses, one on June 5th, a lunar eclipse at 15 degrees of Sagittarius. Then we have on June 21st, a solar eclipse at 0 degrees. And then we have on July 5th, a lunar eclipse at 13 degrees of Capricorn. Okay, so in the May report, I'm going to show you where this June eclipse is happening. In the June report, I'm going to talk about the locations of the second June eclipse, where that is going to be for you. And in the July report, I'll talk about the location of the July eclipse. Okay, so between 3 horoscopes, we'll cover all of the energies, how that's going to look for you. Venus retrograde is very, very major right now because we are actually in it May 13th through June 25th. Venus, the ruler of love and relationships, money and finances, and beauty and self-esteem and design projects and artistic expression. Major rulership of the domains of Venus are coming up in a big way. And I have created lots of resources for you, including a Venus retrograde blog that you can find if you just search for Annie Botticelli Venus retrograde. You'll find all of these resources that I have. And in these May videos, I am going to show you in the chart where that is for you. I've had a lot of requests to go back to the format where I show you the charts and show you more specific detail for the early, middle, and late degree placements, what certain things look like. From the last eclipse cycle, I had some terrible endings that happened then that I had to work with, so I wasn't able to put the extra time in with doing the charts, but now in this month I'm bringing them back. So definitely please let me know if you want me to keep doing that, because I do listen to your feedback. I listen to nice feedback. If people are mean, I don't listen to them. So anything nicely worded, I definitely take into consideration. So we've got a really very important month here. 2020 is one of the most pivotal years of our time. And so May is another cog in the wheel of this time. So I'm going to go into a lot of those details of what that Venus retrograde specifically is going to look like. So let's go ahead and drill down to this sign specific. Oh wait, one more thing. I am creating a free course on claiming victory from viruses. Okay, this topic is very near and dear to my heart, which I will explain in detail in the actual course, why I know so much about this. Spirit has been prepping me to assist with viruses for a while, and there's just way too much information on this topic for me to bring out in the videos. So I'm going to create a whole class about this that I'll continue adding to, so you can register for that class at lumelife.com, L-U-M-E, life.com. Search for Luminous Life Multiversity in my name, and you can see there in the free course listings that you can enroll in the school and in the course for free, so that you can understand how to protect yourself from viruses, understand what they're doing. And I also will go into quite a bit of detail about the bigger picture of how viruses are part of our human evolution and how to work with them in the video called Astrology of 2020 that will follow this video. Okay, so now let's go into the sign-specific movement of Venus retrograde and what types of implications we can see from this, and that placement of the June 5th eclipse for you.
Hello, Aquarius friends. Let's take a deep dive into this Venus retrograde transit and where it's going to show up specifically for Aquarius placements. We're also going to talk about the first of the 3 eclipses that are going to be from June, the beginning of June through the beginning of July, because you will very likely start seeing those effects in May in a big way, if not sooner. So let's figure out where you are on the Aquarius spectrum, and do know that these videos that I make are for you, whether you have Aquarius moon, Aquarius sun, Aquarius rising. I always recommend watching my reports for your sun sign and your rising sign at least, and some people like to go the extra yard and do the moon as well. So this is valid for you regardless of which Aquarius placement you're watching for. Early Aquarius, basically January born, or 0 to 9 degrees. Middle Aquarius, February 1st through 10th or thereabouts, or 10 to 19 degrees. Late Aquarius, February 11th through the rest of the sign, or 20 to 29 degrees. The reason why I say these dates or thereabouts is because the sun doesn't move into Aquarius on the same day each year. You will probably notice this. Sometimes it's staggered a little bit. So because of that, the exact degree, as it relates to early, middle, or late, would be staggered depending on the year you were born. But as long as you have it close, you'll be in the ballpark of what you need to know to help you. Now, if you missed any of this, please rewind it, because I do sometimes get requests saying, hey, am I in the early, middle, or late? But I try to minimize questions that can be answered within the video because I have so many other questions, and it gets a little overwhelming sometimes. Okay, so let's do a quick overview of the dates of the transit. Okay, so May 13th through June 25th is the actual Venus retrograde. There is a shadow period preceding from April 9th through May 13th, and there's a post-transit shadow period that runs until the last days of July. It's around the 30th, 29th, or 30th. Okay, so I just have to respond just to help educate on this. Somebody made a post in a recent, under one of my videos recently, where I was talking about the shadow period of Venus retrograde, and they said, Annie, I am not buying in to a shadow period before retrograde. Okay, so I want to help everybody understand that these shadow periods are not Annie made. Okay, this is me. I did not make these retrogrades. They're mathematical calculations that are predictable. And just because I might be the only one talking about them doesn't mean that I made them up. People who know how to calculate these things, which obviously I do, they're calculatable, or able to be calculated, I guess is correct to say. So, and they're based on the degree that the retrograde begins and the degree that it goes direct at. Okay, so these are mathematical calculations. They're not Annie decided. The 3 reasons I think why you might not hear other people talk about them is because it's a royal pain. Okay, that's first of all. Second of all is because some people don't know about this. And third, well, part of this is also they didn't experiment with it to see the validity of how much it shows up in that time period. And then the other thing is a lot of people are catering to mainstream viewers who get daunted or thrown off by technicalities and details like this. But I'm an astrology teacher, and I'd rather have my little niche of people that get what I'm doing and love it than cater to dilute something down. Okay, I don't want to dumb anything down for you. I honor you all as very intelligent and that you can learn. So we have Venus going retrograde in Gemini, and that is going to be from 21 degrees back to 5 degrees. So everyone in the cosmos will have the implications of the energy of Venus in Gemini. Right? I'm not going to talk too much about that because I want to talk about Aquarius specific things, but I've got a great blog, Venus retrograde in Gemini, which I will link in the notes below, I'm going to link my Venus retrograde video. I'm going to link my Venus retrograde blog series for the signs and houses, and I'm going to link the Venus in Gemini blog so that you can go in and see all of the things that I have to share about this. Because, of course, Venus ruling love, beauty, and design, it rules a lot of areas of life. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is, here's the early degree chart. 21 back to 5 degrees. So 21 is about over here, 5 is about here. So the 5th and 4th houses are going to be under Venus going retrograde storylines. All right, middle degree friends, 21 degrees is going to be about here. You will have mostly a 4th house manifestation, but depending on your exact middle degree, you might have some shadows of storyline over here. Okay, so we're going to put that on your list as well. For you, I guess I should erase some of this, huh? Late degree friends, you're going to have this purely in the 4th house, all right? So since all Aquarius placements are going to have Venus retrograde in the 4th house in one way or another, let's talk about that first. And then you early and middle friends will also talk about the 5th house manifestations. So remembering that Venus going in retrograde brings things involving Venus back from the past. And then we apply that to the house or field of experiences going retrograde for the person, okay? So all the embodiment of money coming from the past, love coming from the past, you know, whether they're issues or opportunities, anything having to do with investments or family-owned things or housing or, you know, houses or design projects or anything like that is all going to be applied to this framework of the 4th house, which is home and family. All right, so inheritances, shared property, spousal property, this is a big deal. And I have to mention this to you. This is very, very important. If you are going through a separation where you are dividing property, especially involving real estate or really anything, but this is the house of home and family. So like, let's say you have an inheritance, you have siblings, you're dividing family property, or you're getting a divorce or separating from a business partner and real estate is involved. People in Venus retrograde tend to not be seen clearly when it comes to money. And many a person during this period of time will throw their money or resources away. They'll be like, I don't want to deal with you toxic people. I want to get the heck away from you. Just take my money. I don't even want it. I just want to be away from you. Okay, and I'm not saying that there may not be times when that's appropriate to step away from a toxic situation, have a clean start, and trust that the money will come from somewhere else. So I know that that happens. However, in Venus retrograde, I've seen it happen. It's more likely that after you do that, you may look back on it and say, oh gosh, what was I thinking? That's like the Venus retrograde thing that goes on. What was I thinking? Okay, so if you can avoid making big money decisions during Venus retrograde, it's better. It's better to think about it. It's better to do inner work to solve the charges about things. It's better to heal and, you know, take some time if you can avoid it. Okay, so that's very, very critical. So I'm going to give you, design projects. That's another thing. If you have a design project scheduled for this time, you'll definitely want to read my blog to look into more details and caveats with this. If you just search for Annie Botticelli, Venus Retrograde, Making the Most of Venus, or Venus Retrograde Do's and Don'ts, it's called. You can find the blog. It's a written version of the video I have on this. It's really important because Venus rules design. So design projects from the past, you might bring back from the past, oh, hey, let's build a house, or oh, hey, let's add on, or let's renovate our whole house. Talking about those kind of things in a way that's not official, coming up with ideas, figuring out things you like, pricing out things, interviewing contractors, things like that during the retrograde could all be fine. And maybe even the other stuff could be fine too. But in general, things that are going to be really expensive, hard to change, design related, and spending a lot of money, if you can do legwork for your future work for this, it's usually better indicated, okay? Because a lot of times people will look at the designs they chose during Venus retrograde and say, what was I thinking? So you don't want to spend however much money you would be spending on this project to look back and say, oh my God, I hate this color. I hate this style. I hate whatever. And wish that you didn't have that situation. Okay. So if you can put it off, it might be more likely, but you have to let your intuition and your flow dictate over what I'm saying, because sometimes there are, differences in how your personal chart looks that could supersede something. In general, this topic of childhood, okay, so questions to ask during this time or that naturally come up. How is my childhood programming on love and on money affecting my life and relationships and experience now? Okay, so that's the tilt to the past. Fourth house is the childhood that we tend to remember, but anything that happened as an imprinting for how we do money and how we do love is a topic that tends to come up. So if you notice your patterns in your relationship, for a while it can be easy to say, oh, well, this stupid boss didn't give me a raise, so therefore they suck. Or this partner is a bummer and they don't value me, and maybe all that's true. However, you are the common denominator. It's you. You're the common denominator in your experience, and you have a powerful force of attraction within you, all within you, that's drawing things to you based on belief systems that you have that are conscious but mostly unconscious. You're pulling it from everywhere. So when you figure out that imprinting through the way things keep happening for you, you can change things. So Venus retrograde is amazing for inner work, and I highly recommend it for like counseling, individual counseling, couples counseling, family counseling, things like that. Okay, where can you apply forgiveness? This is a big piece. Does a family member need you? How can you have a healthy relationship with family members without, while honoring yourself and others? How can you create more coherence in your space? And how can money from the past and investments and homes and houses and family money, opportunities from the past be linked now? Like, let's say you get some money from a family inheritance. So you may be asking the question, how can I have this money make money for me in the future? How can I use this money from the past to do something, to use it right for the future? Relationships tend to go under rigorous scrutiny during Venus retrograde of all types of relationships. Okay, so you might have depending on the state of your relationships, if things come up that are challenging, it's because there are things that are undealt with. So the rug, this nice throw rug that we put down all the time, and we sweep everything under it. Sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the rug. Then the rug goes whoop, and all the stuff comes flying out. And that's for better or worse. These could be things that you invested in the past, and then all of a sudden, rug comes up and it's like, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, great, now that's making a bunch of money, or something like that. But it also is things that you've avoided or haven't wanted to deal with. They tend to come up in your relationships, and you have a chance to deal with them. And if you deal with them, then there's a chance they won't come back up in the future. Okay, so you middle and late degree friends, you're also going to have this fifth house manifestation of Venus in retrograde. Now, late degree friends, you still might want to listen, because your fifth house might be accentuated in your chart. And I wouldn't know that because I'm not looking at your chart. I don't know what all the factors are affecting your particular fifth house. So the things I'm about to discuss could come up for you in a way that's not related to Venus retrograde. So there might be some pieces. But in general, things that happen with this fifth house Venus retrograde are creative projects that fell into the backdrop, or ideas from the past tend to resurface. So anything involving your voice, and sometimes that's literally like your singing voice, or things involving fashion, athleticism, retro types of things tend to come back. Art for art's sake, things involving substances or overdoing fun. The fifth house is the house of fun and hobbies. So things that you did that were fun in the past could come back, or things that you overdid could come back and be a problem. All right, so love relationships are very much under extra scrutiny here when this is Venus is going through the fifth house, because this is the house of true love and romance. So romantic partners from the past, anything is accentuated in a double way for this fifth house placement. You can have fun return to your romantic life in this time. So, and you also could start to prioritize it. So for busy parents or busy people working, you might not have prioritized your spouse. So sometimes the Venus retrograde, especially through this fifth house, adds to this, can bring in, hey, let's have some time with us. And you could breathe life back into your relationship. Or people who are separated from their partner could find that they come back. And that's actually true for everybody in a Venus retrograde. Retrogrades tend to test these weak links, so just kind of look out for those things in the world of your romantic partnerships, in the world of your creative efforts, and in the world of children. So things involving children, having children, child rearing, pregnancies, those types of things might come up. You also might have to spend a little money. Money might come up as like, okay, we've got to put a little bit of money into or other resources into this. Since the fifth house rules fashion, I want to give you an example of how retrograde can work really well here. Buying a whole new wardrobe doesn't usually work really well in Venus retrograde, unless you won't miss the money. And if you don't like things when it's, or you change sizes when it's done, then it won't be a loss to you. But most people, when they buy a brand new wardrobe, if 4 months later there's a problem, that's a big deal for them. So I always recommend something that me and my friends like to do, which is a clothes swap party. And this is perfect for Venus retrograde and perfect for Venus retrograde in fifth house, where everybody brings stuff they don't want that they were going to donate or sell or whatever, put it in a giant pile on the floor, and then everybody goes crazy. We bring food and, listen to music, and then everybody leaves with clothes, and it satisfies this Venus retrograde, but nobody spent any money, so if they decide they don't like the things or they don't fit them or whatever afterwards, then it doesn't matter. Okay, so some proactive lessons that tend to come up, some lessons that tend to come up or questions you can ask yourself proactively during a fifth house Venus in retrograde is, what lessons from the past or present romantic relationships are showing up for you to work with? They are going to take front and center. How can you have more fun in your life? Just thinking about the things with the coronavirus, I know a lot of couples who part of why they're having an easier time in their relationship is because they're both at work all day. But when people start getting into the house more and having to deal with things they were it was easier to avoid, this is another example of how this retrograde can feed into the things that are going on in the bigger picture. Okay, so asking about it back to this fun, how can you have more fun in your life, or are you having too much fun? How has having fun in the past negatively affected you? And how can you, if there was some recklessness or something like that, that tends to come up. So returning back to, ways that you can make the most of this, or returning back to things that you loved, returning back to ideas in the past that were fun, having an idea of like playing with your partner, having a more playful outlook on life, like looking at life through the eyes of a child who is like so full of wonder and happiness, where they're like, oh, what's that? Like if you've ever raised children, or been around them, they go through that. As soon as they can talk, they'll say, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? And they're just so excited about everything. So taking on that type of energy in this time can just make it really, really magical. An affirmation that I created for Venus retrograde through the fifth house is, I look with childlike wonder at my life, creating refreshing insights and experiences. I was going to write it all, but I'm not going to. I'll just read it again. I look with childlike wonder at my life, creating refreshing insights and experiences. Okay, so that's fifth house Venus retrograde. And then the fourth house Venus retrograde one that I made is, I look upon the past with eyes of forgiveness and a heart full of gratitude. I look upon the past with eyes of forgiveness and a heart full of gratitude. Okay, so now we can move on to the eclipses. Definitely look at my Venus retrograde video. I think it's the most viewed Venus retrograde video on the internet. It's very, very information full. And I have the corresponding blog on my website, which I have been able to update. I can't really update videos and add things over time. But if you see the corresponding blog at anniehelpsyou.com, or if you just search for Venus Retrograde Annie Botticelli, you'll see all the Venus Retrograde resources. I've I've added updates and caveats and exceptions and things, responses from, when people would ask a question and I'd see that I needed to put more detail. I've added to that blog over time. So definitely read that. I'm going to just show you very briefly where this first eclipse is going to be for you. So there's one on June 5th, which is the Sagittarius 15-degree lunar eclipse. Then there's two more, June 21st solar eclipse at 0 degrees of Cancer, and then there's the July 5th lunar eclipse at 13 degrees of Cap. Those Cancer Capricorn ones are ending that Capricorn Cancer cycle, so many things involving home and work will come to a final conclusion or a notable climax or chapter end. And so we also now are starting the Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle. And that's going to be present for 2 years, and there will be global implications. And you can look at, so if you look up on on my home page, there's going to be, as I post these May videos, there's going to be an eclipse series with the eclipses through the signs and houses. So I recommend looking at my one called Eclipses in Sag. And then and that's going to be true for all of you, and that's going to be true for every zodiac member. Okay. And if you want to get a heads up on the Capricorn and Cancer ones, you can look at the eclipses in Cap and eclipses in Cancer. And again, these are universal, but you're very likely to see notable things. All right. So you can start to prep because you are going to be feeling these things coming in April, very strong in May, June, major stuff, July, major stuff. So we're in eclipse season as of, the middle of April or even the beginning of April. So you want to know about all this. So now I'm going to show you where in your chart this is going to be. 15 degrees of Sagittarius. For early degree placements will be either the 11th or 10th house, depending on where you're at in that 0 to 9 degree spectrum. Okay. So 11th house possibilities, but also 10th house possibilities for the early degree placements. I'll give a brief explanation of what that means, but you'll want to see the videos on those topics to get into more detail. 15 degrees of Sag for middle degrees, most of you are going to have that in the 10th house. But some of you might have some whispers in the 11th, depending on your exact placement. Late degree placements, this is pretty purely in the 10th house for you. 10th house is career, work, father figures. I just had an eclipse, Capricorn eclipse, that was also in my 10th house, and my beloved stepfather passed away. That can happen, and that will happen for some people. But for other people, your father may have something notable. Maybe they'll help you with something. Maybe you'll go into business with them. Maybe they'll recover from something they were having trouble with. It's a focus on that area. And remember, this is all of you. All early, middle, and late degree placements have a chance to have this in the 10th house. So the early degrees, you have a chance to have this in the 10th house. And the middle and late, definitely. All right, so this is, this thing with fathers, dads, work. This is another big thing that you're seeing, again, with the current things going on with the coronavirus and the breakdown of the systems from all these outer planets in Capricorn and Saturn going back and forth here. All of this stuff is breaking down systems and changing the way people work. Capricorn rules work. So this eclipse cycle is going to bring more, information about what that's going to look like for you. And that's for all of you. The early and middle degree placements, you'll also likely see some manifestations in the 11th house. And the 11th house has to do with internet-based projects, community projects, friends, friendships, social circles, humanitarian efforts, your place on a team, or your place in the bigger picture, like your role in the community, in the world, your place as part of a group. And you can look to that video about, and this will be called Eclipses in Aquarius or 11th house. Okay, that's the one you want to look for, you early and middle degree placements, to see a lot more details about how this can manifest for you and how I've seen this tend to manifest for people over time.
Okay, so definitely look in the notes below this video. If you click the little arrow that says more underneath the video, it will reveal written notes. In those notes, I have the links to my Venus retrograde video. I have the links to the blogs for Venus retrograde through the signs and houses. And I also have the link to loomlife.com, which is where you can register for that free class on claiming victory from viruses. And you can also see my other resources, including my course, Becoming a Professional Astrologer. Astrology is always important, but in these times of what the types of things that are going on now, understanding astrology in a different way can be very, very helpful to our own individual peace and process, and for helping others. So if you want to learn to do that, you can check that out at loomlife.com as well, Lume life.com. And you can see more blogs at anniehelpsyou.com. I have lots and lots of blogs. And at cozybysweetstarlight.com, you can, again, this link will be in the notes underneath as well. You can find written horoscopes by me and astrology kissed blogs, how to use astrology in your day-to-day in wonderful ways. Most of the resources that I create for you are free, so make sure that you tap into those. I only have a very small amount of paid services compared to my free resources, and those are for people who want to go deeper into my teachings and my work. But otherwise, just know that there's so much for you. Just explore the websites that I'm sending you to. So I hope you have a wonderful month. I hope that you can stay positive and make the most of the opportunities that are coming to us through these transits, the big ones and the small ones. Venus retrograde is actually a big one, but it's kind of dwarfed in some ways underneath the titans of the zodiac clashing in these Capricorn placements. But it still is going to have Venus retrograde, even though it's on this different level than these big guys. It's really going to have a lot of effect on your day-to-day experience during this month and beyond. So I do hope you have the best month possible, and I'll see you soon. Bye.